why do you keep getting denied? And then he finally told me. I was like,
clients are hilarious about that. It's always like, did any of this happen? They're like, no, I'm perfectly healthy. Nothing ever happened. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I didn't know that was going to come up.
Yeah. Welcome to the Agent Q&A. You got your host here, John. We got Joanne. We got Albert. Everyone. So we got a great topic for today. But before we do so, anybody joining in, if you guys have any questions, we'll feel free to ask now and we'll address it and we'll cover our topic.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
All right. I just want to confirm. So I have a client who he wanted to do an IUL. I tried to do him through F&G. Then comes to find out, he actually finished drug and alcohol rehab August 2022. So he doesn't have a family or anything. He's 29. He mostly wanted it to try to get some cash value. But now I'm hearing like we can't really, there's no IUL that will take him. I guess whole life might not be worth it. He doesn't have a big budget, probably like $150 to $200 a month. Is there anything that you guys would suggest doing for him? I would hate to just leave him alone and say, oh, in 2 to 5 years, like, what can we do?
Yeah, we definitely got a lot of plans. But to start off with how the drug and alcohol rehab works, there's 2 sets of this, right? So is it recorded or it's like court ordered versus like a voluntary? If it's voluntary, like if a person just goes to AA on themselves, you're fine. Like you don't have to report that, right? Like it's not recorded. But if somebody went and we've had people declined, like let's say you got too drunk, then you went into the hospital, you got hospitalized. That's going to mark it as a drug and alcohol issue. Okay, so it really depends on what happened to him. What's his story? Did he get caught? Did he?
Yeah, it's definitely recorded. Like I said, when we tried to, I already pushed through F&G because I didn't know at first. And then they declined him and he said he wanted to talk with his doctor. And yes, he actually had like a doctor for it and everything. It's recorded.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult thing because had you gone a simplified issue first, then if they didn't catch it, then sometimes it slides through because I mean, I never advocate. I never say it's okay to lie, but I always say if they don't ask you a specific question, don't volunteer information. So like as long as it's like no, according to the guidelines, that's one way to try to do it. But that's with simplified issue first. So simplified issue is simple accept or reject. And if they get rejected, you can still continue to apply for other policies. It's not going to show up in MIB. If you go fully underwritten, which in this case, F&G is, once it's the decline, it'll show a decline on the MIB. So anytime you apply for any other type of policy, even if it's a simplified issue, when they pull MIB records, it's going to show that he was declined. So it's going to be a challenge at this point to get him qualified for anything else.
But it just depends though. What did F&G tell you? Did they decline it or they withdrew it or they marked this incomplete? If you guys enjoy, I'm saying it too many times.
Thanks for joining us so far. That's all I remembered.
We can continue to share with other people. We probably need to redo it, right? Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If you guys have found this stuff helpful up to this point, or you guys would like to see some other stuff,
please like and subscribe and create a comment so we can cover that next topic.
And continue watching the show.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a hard decline.
Yeah, so if it's a hard decline, they get a letter in the mail for the understanding the reasoning for it. So when MIB recording takes some time though. So sometimes if you got the decline today, they may not have processed anything yet to FNG to report it to MIB. You have a shot of trying to do an application now on the spot.
It was probably like a month ago now.
Okay.
And so he took a break from, because I don't know, did I apply for another one before him? But anyways, it was like, why do you keep getting denied? And then he finally told me. I was like,
clients are hilarious about that. It's always like, did any of this happen? They're like, no, I'm perfectly healthy. Nothing ever happened. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I didn't know that was going to come up.
Yeah. So I kind of prep my clients on that. If their final expense or 50 and up, I always tell them like, when we do an application, your social is attached to your prescription history. They're going to see everything, whether you tell me or not. So I kind of guide them. If I'm seeing somebody like 40 and under, I not only mention that, but I also say your social is going to attach your whole prescription history, and when we put in your driver's license, it's going to also see all your arrest history or your record of your license.
Right.
So felonies, moving violations, it makes a difference. So you kind of bring that up, so it prevents them from lying. It's like, okay, I can't lie.
Right.
It's going to mess it up.
And yeah, I mean, that's also like something that you gain with experience, because at first, you want to believe people. They're all going to tell you the truth and be open. But I guess you get to a certain point where you just want to ask the client, like, hey, so they're going to do a background check and everything with a fully unwritten plan like this. So my job is to try to help you get approved for this. So I mean, is there anything else that might come up, along the way? Because I'm not here to judge. I'm just trying to point you in the right direction, get you a plan that helps you qualify. So Is there anything else? And then sometimes they tell you, sometimes they still are so committed to just withholding that information that they're like, nope, perfectly healthy, perfectly fine.
Yeah. Never been arrested.
Never been arrested.
No DUIs.
No HIV or AIDS.
So in your situation now, so what do we have left? All right. So have you tried Ethos? Because Ethos was great about it. It tries to do the term, then it'll downgrade to a lower term, then it'll downgrade to a whole life, then it'll downgrade to like senior life. So there should still be some available product available for him as far as natural death. And then you have a guaranteed policy with Mutual of Omaha. They have a guaranteed advantage plan, which is an accidental only. You can go up to $500,000 of coverage for him, and you can add a return of premium. So accidental return of premium gives him $500,000 in case he dies from an accident. And then he gets all the return of the premium if he doesn't die from an accident.
And he can use that if he cancels on that one. Well, after say the 2 to 5 years passes or whatnot, and now he wants to try to get into a whole life, he can cancel and get the return of premium with that.
Up to what, depending on how many years he's had it for. So it'll be proportionate to that amount of cash value that's built up. So there's a table in the agent guide. So it's on the Google Drive, so you can take a look at that. But if he gets a return of premium, it'll build up to a certain point, and then he can get whatever it's the commensurate amount of cash value at that point.
No, there's no cash. We're talking about the accidental one only.
Yeah. So for the return of premium, so it builds
accidental builds cash value.
Oh, that's how they do the return of premium
with the Mutual of Omaha.
It's not full. It's a return of premium, so it builds up a certain percentage up after a certain number of years.
You're talking about Mutual of Omaha's
guaranteed advantage.
What? Yeah, I thought they only get the return of premium if they don't die from an accident or if they hit an age of 80.
Even though UL hates this when we pull out our phones, but I'm just going to pull this up to show you real quick.
So they get something. So you tell them this is how you would pitch it, right? Like, look, you're 29. You don't have any major medical conditions on you. So here's what's great thing. We can get you 500,000 coverage just in case you die right now. It's going to be because of an accident. So we're going to get you covered. The usual drug and alcohol issue, they want time on that. They want 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They just want to make sure you've recovered, you're past rehab, there's no recovery, there's no relapses and all these things, then they can reapply again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, when people go through underwriting, there's obviously the medical part of it. There's also the habits and the risk part of it to see how they conduct their lives. So they just want to see a little bit more time pass by, to see if they actually stayed clean, if they actually changed their lifestyle to be able to be insurable at that point. So I mean, yeah, this would be a good way to just be like, hey, we can't get you that right now. You'll have a few more options available when you as you get older, which I will stay in contact with you as your agent. Here's what I'd recommend. There's an accidental death coverage that you'll be able to qualify for. Now, it's only accidental death, but if you don't pass away and you have the return of premium, if you pass away from natural causes, you'll get that money back. Your family will get that money back. And then after a certain number of years, you'll get all of your money back if you don't pass away. So you can't really lose. At least you get something. And as with the situation, we know life is unpredictable. So at least you have this in place.
Okay.
So
thank you, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So try Ethos, see if you can get any final expense on them. At 29, though, it's difficult because of that issue.
Yeah.
There are 2 other companies I could think of. Maybe AM, Family Choice, and then Transamerica, Immediate Solutions. It's going to be pricier, but it's a whole life. So, but it might be a graded whole life where you have to wait 2 years.
Oh, was he convicted of a misdemeanor or felony in the process of having that court ordered?
No.
Okay.
That's a shot.
I'll try MM. Yeah.
Transamerica graded.
I'd go with AMAM first, personally.
Right.
With who?
American Amicable.
American Amicable.
Yeah.
And then what you were mentioning too, you mentioned that he has a budget of $150 to $200, right? So
Right.
with AMAM, they might have a max coverage of 20,000, 25,000. So you can double up if you want to do Transamerica and that to add it. But if he's not looking to just get a permanent plan, he wants the cash value accumulation.
Yeah.
My next phase then is to repartition that money into someone else. Does he have any kids? So you could do an FNG IUL on the kids, nephews,
Right.
nieces, build that up on the cash value.
Right.
So maybe you'll do a $30, $40 plan for him. We do 150 on somebody else.
Okay.
Now, is he married too?
No, he's not married, doesn't have any kids, no siblings, just his mom. So.
Okay.
So you got to press that button. Just be like, what would happen to dear old mom if you pass away unexpectedly? You wanted to pay for your funeral. You know, did you have any debt that you might stick her with? So right now, let's just get something in place. Let's take care of this accidental coverage. You never know in life. And plus, if you don't pass away due to an accident, you get all your money back.
Cool.
And then see if you have any annuity options in there too. It's like, yeah, you're single, you're not married, you don't have any kids. Do you have any savings? You're not spending a lot, right? Let's look into an annuity, minimum of 10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else on the chat have any questions? You guys can ask anything from as far as contracting, field, scenarios, product training. Let us know.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, ZC, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. You. Yeah, I just have a question. What company is out there that we can put for someone that is going to be away out of the country for 2 years?
Well, generally, it's not an issue as long as they're a resident here in the United States.
Mhm.
They also can do foreign nationals if they have a business here within the United States. The 2-year thing shouldn't be an issue unless it's a high risk state, or high risk country, which is
like the war countries,
the Middle East, Yemen,
Oh, okay.
certain African countries that I've seen listed, right?
Yeah.
But
Also, most of
Ukraine.
most carriers, they will.
they ask about it. So they'll say like, do you plan to reside in these countries for the next 2 years, or do you have any travel planning into these particular countries? Sometimes they'll ask. But for the most part, aside from those high risk countries, I don't know how they determine it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where there's
Thank
a lot
you.
of military activity, everywhere else should be fine.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it'll probably be just an additional question follow up on.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you would just make the notes, if they're dual citizen, they're 6 months in, 6 months back, something like that, I think it'll be okay. But in these scenarios, what you want to do first is you want to identify which carrier you're going to write with. And
Right.
then you can always call that carrier that morning or before you write the application and do a risk assessment. So let them know this is the situation with the client. This is doable. So that way you don't write an application, get it declined, and then create an MIB history on it.
Oh, okay. So we can ask for a preliminary underwriting
Right.
Yeah, it's called a risk assessment. So you just call into the carrier.
risk
And-
assessment.
Yeah, and they just ask for the help desk or the underwriting department, and just be like, hey, I'm an
Okay.
agent. I'd like to do a risk assessment. And then,
Okay.
what's the situation? And have a client that they have this medical condition, or they're about to do this, they're about to do that. Here's what they want to do. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
and also, as I was just telling Ashley earlier, I don't know if you caught it. If it's not asked on the application, don't volunteer the information. Be
Mhm.
honest, but don't volunteer.
Yeah. I tell my clients, I'm not going to open up a can of worms, right? Don't ask, don't tell.
Okay.
I always ask that drug and alcohol question, and sometimes I leave out the real question on the application in the last 2 years or the last 3 years or the last 5 years. And clients will divulge additional information. Yeah, I got a DUI 30 years ago. I killed a man 20 years ago.
Isn't that funny? There's like the two ends of the spectrum for clients. Like some of them, like no matter what you ask them specifically, they're like, nope,
Yeah.
never had that. When they totally have had it, you can
Yeah.
tell. And then the other one's like, you're like, oh, have you? They're like, oh, but I take this and I take that. And I'm like, this is not what I asked.
Right. They'll tell you your full life story. Smoked weed once. So these things make a difference. So you want to answer to the best of your abilities to get them approved.
And also, obviously we want to protect the carriers too, because they are our partners. So, anything that's blatant and obvious, we definitely should disclose.
Yeah.
Or we should stop the application process. But for the most part, if it's not specifically asked and, it's an acceptable risk, let's do what we can to get them approved.
Right. And then also, later down the road too, just because you got a policy approved does not mean that the insurance company does not have a right to rescind that. I've had that a few times. Okay. So clients lied, put it on the application, got the policy approved, like 11 months. I've had a policy 23 months and the 24th month, got it rescinded. Company said, hey, based on the information, and we ran back medical records again, this client misrepresented themselves in the application. And I got a full charge back. I was mad. It was like on the 23rd month, really.
Right.
It's right before it's non-contestable.
They did the due diligence.
They know. You can't get away with it. So make sure you keep your license as well, and your E&O never be used. Any other questions? Good. All right. So we got a question, which is good for agents and new agents. Going into the misrepresenting, and our topic is more about the narcissistic and toxic traits of agents. The question was, why did I get a chargeback? So they, when they rescind the policy, right before I go into this question, when they rescind the policy, they say that the policy never started to begin with. So if the policy never started to begin with, they're returning all premiums paid by the client back to them. And they're returning all the commissions paid back to me by me having a chargeback. So that's how that works.
Right. So insurance, and just to expound on that a little bit, with the insurance commissioners throughout the country, every state has their own specific policies, but the insurance companies have 2 years of a contestability period to discover whether or not a client should have been insurable or not. So somehow it got through because they didn't disclose information. They may have lied on an application, or just information wasn't available back then. And then they can go back within that 2-year period, and if they discover anything during their due diligence portion, and they discover this client was never insurable to begin with, or shouldn't have been covered in the first place, that they have the ability to be able to invalidate this contract. So when they invalidate the contract, like they did in John's situation, then that basically means that contract was never in force and was never valid. And then that means the policy was just basically canceled and everything was returned to the client. The premiums returned to the client, say, thank you very much, but we can't take you. And then, John, that commission we paid you, that's ours. We're taking it back.
Client paid over almost 2 years. And then next thing you know, like, I don't even get renewals. I haven't had any renewals on this. It's a term policy from 13th month to 23. And the next thing you know, I got a charge back.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Well, which is why I guess we need to, and no, that doesn't happen a lot, which is why it's important for us to be a little bit more thorough on the application. I mean, all of us as agents, we have some discretion as far as like what we're choosing to put into the application or not. Like, like we mentioned, if there's certain things that we don't think it's going to injure the insurance company, we don't have to volunteer. If we may not, but we want to make sure we get all the information so we don't just like put in an application that shouldn't have been submitted in the first place. And then not only will it hurt the insurance company potentially, but also it's like, what's the point of it if they're going to catch it and then they're going to rescind the policy and then you get the charge back, the client doesn't get coverage, and we're delaying everything.
Yeah. Worst case, if that happened, the company catches it. And this happens often. You get a policy approved, client got approved, but the client died within the first 2 years. Okay. So, well, now it's contestable. The insurance company will do their due diligence. We have simplified issue policies that don't ask for a doctor record, but if they died, now they're going to start asking. They're going to start digging. So we do a death claim. They ask for a witness, doctor full medical records. They review that because it's within 2 years, and they can choose to pay or not pay. If there was misrepresentation on the application or an error or an omission, they don't pay. They're just going to give back the money to the client. They're going to get a determination letter to the client. So here's the bad part. The beneficiaries will either take it as it is what it is, the insurance denied the claim, or they can go after you. So they can try to sue. If they sue, the insurance company says, we find no fault, deal with the agent. Well, that's when our errors and omissions, policies come and kick in.
Well, which hopefully never gets to that point. So
Right.
The thing is, if we did our due diligence on our end as an agent and we asked the questions and we submitted it accordingly, sometimes the client lies about stuff.
Yep.
We've had that happen. Like the client says, "Oh, I never agreed to, take drafting for this policy. I never wanted to take out this policy," where we have like all kinds of proof along the way.
Yep.
And then sometimes the carriers will be like, "Yeah, we agree with the agent. We back you."
Mm-hmm.
But so as long as we got to do our best as agents.
Yeah. And then, you CYA, you cover yourself. And
Right.
And also there's always going to be a claim statement and an agent statement during that time. So, and then it's up for review. So as long as you do to the best of your ability and the most honest way, you can't find fault in yourself.
Yeah.
Clients will lie because they've they've applied multiple times. They've tried and they got rejected. Well, they knew what they got rejected for. So they're thinking, oh, let me be slick. Let me not add this to the next application. Maybe they'll pass through.
Right.
Can't help them all. Right. So the topic is, we run into situations for new agents or agents that's been in the field, sometimes the field's not the best and most fun thing, right?
Yeah.
So you would get into a toxic trait, or you would start doing a lot of blaming game, right? What's a common toxic trait that you see from an agent that you already see, okay, if you continue with this path, if you don't correct this path, you might not see them in 6 months?
Number one, I would say they never want to take accountability for not putting the work in. So they'll say oh yeah, I'm working these leads, but they're truthfully not really working the leads. Yeah, I think that's probably the main thing.
Yeah. So when conversations happen, they go on self-defense mode, right?
Yeah. So they blame everything and everyone oh, my upline, I don't even know who my upline is. I don't have, my manager never told me what to do. I wasn't given a script. I don't know where I can get the product information from. Yeah, they just blame everything and everyone before actually taking some accountability for their work.
Yeah.
In quotation
We
marks.
hear that often, and that's like a irky statement. When they ask a question or they're frustrated, you give them an answer, and their first reply is, "Well, no one ever told me that."
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one agent that used to always say "I wish someone had told me, wish someone had taught me that." I'm like, okay, you know who your boss is. If you go look at your 1099 statement, you know who's your boss? You.
So then how would you deal with that? It's how you're in a situation where you're trying to create a positive solution, right? But when the conversation happens, they start blaming, they start getting mad, or they start getting self defense on their situation. Or worst case, they start attacking you. Well, you have more free time than me. My story's different.
Yeah. I love when they attack me. I actually don't mind it because sometimes I do reflect and be think about it give it a beat and think about it. I'm did I actually could have handled this differently? I do want to learn, and then if it's not, then I'm okay, cool. I'm now this actually tells me a lot about this person.
Right.
Yeah.
How did they spin this entire thing to be all right, it didn't work out for me for whatever reason. This is your fault. And I'm I remember being your daddy.
Yeah, we've had one where it's
not my responsibility.
I had one where somebody said, "You were supposed to be my mentor, man. If I stopped contacting you, that was a sign." It's sign for what?
Right.
You're a grown man. It's a sign for what? You need attention?
Which so I guess to that point, I think sometimes if you're in constant communication with someone and you guys have that type of relationship, both of you guys have been there for each other and you guys have been accountable to one another, and this person just disappears off the face of the earth. Yeah, it is our responsibility to reach out to them as a business partner, if we're a mentor, or even just as a friend and as a human being. We should probably just reach out and be "Hey, are you still alive? Or is everything okay?"
Yeah.
But I think that's that's the toxic trait that we're speaking of.
Yeah.
And this is the toxic archetype number one. I think Joanne was hit the nail on the head. it's never my fault guy,
Mhm.
or it's never my fault girl, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's just always like, it's not my fault. No one ever taught me. No one ever did this. This person didn't reach out to me. This person didn't teach me this. So I think that's a pretty common thing. But in that particular situation that we were talking about, yeah, it's like, okay, well, why would I reach out to you if you consistently don't show up to the calls? Don't show up to the trainings. You haven't been working. You
Right.
haven't been reporting your numbers when at one point you did, and then so it's like, okay, like we've had a couple of discussions about certain other things about business. You gave us the problem to every solution we offered, and it's like, okay, so we get to a certain point where it's like, all right, you just got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
At this point, this is for you to work out, because all the constructive things I've tried to give you, you have told us why it won't work. And it's not that it won't work, on an actual basis. It won't work because your mind is telling you it won't work, and you're not going to do it, and you're not going to have very much success with it. And you're presetting that course for yourself already. So why do we want to invest more time into that? Now, if you said like, I'm going to keep trying, I recognize I did something wrong. Maybe I'm not where I want to be. I'm going to continue to put in the effort. Yeah, we'll continue to reach out to you because it's worth it, because you're showing that you want it that badly. Right.
Yeah. So what's the solution then, right? So when as an agent, then if you start seeing these little, I would say personality type, not even personality type, maybe like a one-off here and there, it's like you start thinking about in a negative way of the situation you're in. How do you catch yourself, and what's the next step? How would you turn the right way?
Well, ironically, if I like the agent and we have a relationship, I'll match their toxic trait with my own toxic trait, which is sarcasm, right? So sometimes because sometimes like you can just tell them and then like they won't really get it, but if you make them laugh, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Because sometimes they'll say stuff like, oh, how come you didn't reach out to me? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I your boss? Am I your dad? Right? And then if we have a relationship, obviously I won't do it to most agents that we don't have that relationship, because then that's just very rude and immature, which it's still immature.
Yeah.
So
You got to make fun of things sometimes, right?
You got to have fun with it sometimes. And, and honestly, I'm sarcastic with you.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sarcastic with you. I'm sarcastic with the people that are close to me. So, I mean, if I'm sarcastic to you, it probably means I like you. And so, I mean, you just got to get people to like recognize, all right, stop right here. Here's the reason why you haven't had more success. You're stopping yourself mentally because of this, whatever this toxic trait happens to be. And you're not that far away from being able to resolve it, but you need to recognize it first and then make a decision that you don't want to continue to do it. You still might do it from time to time, because if it's a habitual thing that you've built up along the way, you can't stop cold turkey for the most part. But if you have someone keeping you accountable, telling you, hey, this is what it is, there's a chance.
Yeah. Most of the time, right, we do think in more negative than positive. It's a common thing. And it's kind of funny because I try not to do that, raising a kid, yelling, no, especially when you got a 1-year-old trying to grab things, and you always got to prevent them from killing themselves. Trying to drop big things on them. So you don't want to yell, no, but you try to get them away. So if you are in that position, sometimes you can't get away from your mental attitude. So you got to find positive things, but you don't want to bring that negative energy into someone else's, because now you're taking away their positive energy. It's creating an energy leak in a sense, right? So how do we double up? Well, first off, you want to double up on your action to get you more results. If not, for people that are creating the negativity around you, you also got to double up. Because if Joanne comes to me and says, well, things aren't working, these leads aren't working, but I'm having twice the result, is it the leads now, or is it them? So we have to lead them back into their way of, okay, there's something I'm doing wrong when other people are having success.
That's also another very toxic trait also for certain people. They say like, oh, this isn't working for me. And then you point out all the different examples of, it's working here, it's working here, it's working here, it's working here, it's working for this person, it's worked for me, it's worked for this person.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then they're like, well, their situation's different.
Right.
And it's like, why?
How so? Yeah.
Like, can you explain to me why that is? Because the situation is different because they're actually applying it. And then you're at this point, not only not applying it, but you're refusing to believe that it actually works. And now you're putting all the blame on the external factors, rather than just internalizing some of it and being like, I actually could fix this if I just focus on this.
Yeah, there's always a solution because you see how FFL is, especially in our business. Okay. Outside, maybe something different, but especially with FFL, do the leads work? Do any leads work?
Yeah.
They do.
They all work. But they all suck.
Right.
Exactly.
So if you ever get a toxic agent saying the leads don't work, these clients don't buy, common thing, right? You hear that often.
Yeah.
What's the solution? What is the common denominator?
Put more reps in.
Skills, I would say, too,
Yeah.
right? They just don't have enough people that they're talking to, and they may be taking personal of one or two scenarios that happened, whereas the top producer had already had that experience, but 20 times more.
Right.
I was talking to Terrence earlier today, and he made a sale. I think he's 2 for 2 today.
A couple,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but he said early this morning after he made a sale, he was so happy. It's like, man, I've been getting beat up on the phones. I've been getting murdered. I went 0 for 18 in the last presentations, not like no shows. 0 for 18 in the last presentations. But when was the last sale that Terrence made before that? Today's Thursday, I think Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that meant from Tuesday to Thursday, he went 0 for 18. Yeah, I don't think I did see him make a sale on Wednesday. That was about it. Yesterday he did.
And mind you, like his presentations are, some of them are short because he has so many leads.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are just like the client gives a little bit of pushback. He's like, all right, you have a blessed day. And hangs up.
Call me. Right. Yeah. So you could have an agent complain about like 3 presentations that they did in 2 weeks, whereas Terrence did 18 presentations already in a day and a half.
Right.
So he went through what you went through in a day and a half versus you didn't have enough actions.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even have time to feel bad about himself. He doesn't have time to overthink because he's busy doing.
Right. And sometimes we could just be blaming the whole scenario of the whole system and everything around us when we just don't have enough action planned. We don't have enough presentations in. We probably, going back to Joanne's main thing, is we just didn't work enough.
Yeah, you know, Terrence is actually I'm actually seeing him this weekend, so I'm excited to go spend some time with him out in Atlanta. But he's like an ideal agent because he just takes a lot of personal responsibility. So, you know, even yesterday, like for as many presentations as he does, you know, it's not like he hasn't gotten to his head. You know, he's came off of an awesome month.
Right. Helped 40 families. And
then he called me yesterday and said like, hey, I have this one lady, you know, for you know, she wanted an IUL, and I'm like, cool. What do you need help with? And then he's like, well, you know, so she said this. I don't think I'm set up with this carrier, and you know, ultimately, he showed a lot of hesitancy, you know. So it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I'm like, I'll get on live dials. I'll present it for you if you want, and then just you can listen in so you can pick up some stuff, and then this way you know for the future. And I'm like, and he's like, well, he's like, I don't even care. You can write it. You can keep the money. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that because you know this is your lead. You presented the opportunity. We should at least split it. And then he's like, no. He's like, you looked out for me plenty. Like, you know, I appreciate you. And I'm like, what a guy.
This guy's working off of the abundance.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? If we sell it, then I'll buy dinner for this weekend. Right. And then so he's like, all right, cool. But see, the thing is like that level of humility that he had, you know, in spite of, because even as much as he's accomplished, you know, he still has those moments where he's just like, yeah, I don't know how to do this very well. You know, so I do need some help. And then, you know, we're going to teach him. So we're going to get him to understand all this and be a killer in every regard. But he also knows where his bread and butter is at. Right. So instead of saying like, I don't know this, so I can't do it. It's like, all right, well, this part's not my strength, but let me focus on the parts that are. Right. Yeah. And he carves out an awesome niche in what he wants to do.
Yeah. And if you have so many people to help and so many clients to take care of, if this is going to take away, he's determining his value in his time now, right?
Yeah.
If he's going to need to spend an extra appointment on this, an extra presentation, maybe a follow-up, he got to figure out a different application or get contracting. That's too much work. He's thinking in his head, I could probably already do 2-3 more sales than this one. I'd rather get rid of this one. Albert, you take care of it. I got to keep focusing on my bread.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. That makes total sense. I was going to say that, like, for him, it's just, or for agents in general, I think it's really important that they do value their time, because if they're not valuing their time and they're wasting so much time and energy into learning something brand new without reaching out for help when help is right there in the group me or right there a phone call away, then it really doesn't serve the agent much to put so much energy and put so much time. Like, yeah, you're going to learn it and you're going to learn within the process. But at the same time, he still has the opportunity to pick up the phone and continue dialing, which is a plus.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the scenario was too. Because so I told him, yeah, just get a live dials. I'll present it in this way, for the future, and then you can handle these on your own. And he's like, well, no, you can just take it, because he's like, I think I got 2 or 3 other appointments during that same time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. All right.
It's running so fast, he can't afford detours, man.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing.
But that's like a good thing too, when you are experienced and you get to know like what market is working for you, what leads are working for you, what schedule you're working, and you're kind of on that consistent grind, that like nothing can phase you and nothing's going to deviate you from your goal of helping more than 40 families this next month.
Which, if I could add one more detail to that particular story. So, he showed all this hesitancy. So I'm like, don't worry, I got you. I'll walk you through the whole thing, or I'll present. You can listen. So, he's like, all right, cool. And then we get to that point, calls the client back. She's not interested anymore anyway. So for as much as agents get hung up on like certain situations, like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And they spend so much time overthinking, and not that he was overthinking to that degree, but we were putting it together, all these different solutions for something that didn't even happen yet.
Yeah, it didn't even play out.
We're thinking and talking and trying to figure things out, and then call back the lady, and she was just like, "Yeah, I'm not interested anymore." So, which I had no problem with, because I'm like, cool. I mean, I got other things to do. I got other plans to go and see. He got 2 or 3 appointments, and he was just like, yeah, he's my bad, no worries.
Yeah,
and I'm like, cool. So
I think the solution now, from all this conversation we had, you will get a lot more toxic people or complainers when they're not getting enough results. Right? But if you run so much, you're so busy. If you work enough, you have enough appointments, presentations, work so hard that you don't have time to complain. You can't complain. You got too many people to sell, so you can't lower your energy and then lose opportunities and future presentations by being a sourpuss.
Right.
So that's pretty much our topic. Maintain your mental energy. Make sure you guys are positive. Reach out to us if you guys have any questions, something that throws you off, because we want to make sure you guys are continually making sales every week. So we'll see you guys next week.
Appreciate you guys.
Follow us on Facebook on FFL Elite. See you guys then.
All that.
Like and subscribe. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you guys want to subscribe, click here. If you want to watch the next video, click here.